I took a trip to Disneyland Paris for just a 2-day trip. So today I'm going to break down how much that sort of trip would cost you by telling you exactly how much everything cost me. My name is Sophie from Most Magical Guides and welcome to my channel. I make videos all about how to plan your own most magical trips to Disneyland Paris and Disney World. So if you like that type of content, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. So let's dive into how much a 2-day trip to Disneyland Paris can cost you. So first off, I'm going to start off with the core costs, stuff like hotels, park tickets, flights and transportation. So for me, this time I stayed off-site for the very first time. I usually stay in a Disneyland Paris hotel, but this time I thought, let's try and do a cheaper trip and see what it is like. I stayed at Campanile Val de France for my trip, and I did a review of what I thought of the hotel, and I will put that up here and in the description down below. I really liked this hotel because it was really close to the parks, it had free shuttle buses, and also it was just really great value. It cost me £121 as a solo traveller for 2 nights. Now, the only thing that solo travellers do tend to pay more for is hotels. If there were more of you, you probably would pay slightly less per person per night, but I still thought this was a really great deal. Campanile Val de France is very close to the parks and it's on a strip of 5 other hotels. You have the Dream Castle, Magic Circus, B&B, Explorers and Campanile all on one long strip. Now, out of those hotels, Campanile is the cheapest, but they are all really good value and they all offer free shuttles to the parks, so they're a really good close proximity range of hotels if you are thinking about staying off-site at Disneyland Paris. The hotel was comfortable, clean, it had everything I need, and for about £60 a night, I thought this was really good value, and it's definitely the cheapest option close to the parks. For my May trip, I flew to Paris to Charles de Gaulle Airport with EasyJet. Usually what I do is I upgrade where you pay for an upfront seat, which also includes a cabin case with you. I didn't do that this time. Instead, I went with just a backpack, and I will also leave a link to that to see how you can manage to do a trip to Disneyland Paris with just a backpack. So what was great about doing that is I didn't have to pay any extra for baggage. I just took the backpack, which was included in the standard rate, and that cost me £77. This is slightly more than I would usually pay, but I think because it was May and it was a busier time of year, it makes sense that the prices are a little bit higher than usual. Because I was staying off site, something that I had to do this time was purchase park tickets. Now, if you stay at a Disneyland Paris hotel, your park tickets are included in your room rate. But if you do stay off site, you will need to put this cost on top of the rest of your holiday. I bought directly from Disney because I like the fact that you have lots of flexibility and you can even cancel your tickets for free with a full refund up to 3 days in advance of your trip, which is perfect for at the moment because you never quite know what's happening with travel. I purchased the 2-day park hopper tickets for £133. There are websites where you can get tickets slightly cheaper, such as attraction tickets, but you're literally talking a couple of pounds. So to have the security of being able to be flexible and even cancel your tickets if needed, I always think it's good to do it directly with Disney. Something new I tried this time was getting the high-speed train from Charles de Gaulle Airport to Disneyland Paris. I hadn't previously done this because it is the most expensive option, but because my flight landed around 7 p.m, the magical shuttle that I would usually use to go to a Disneyland Paris hotel was already stopped running. You couldn't get one. So you had to either get a taxi or use the metro and local trains or get the high-speed train. The great thing about the high-speed train is it literally takes just 10 minutes and 1 stop to get to Disneyland Paris, and you are literally right there. When you arrive, in front of you have the gates to the parks, and to the side of you you have the bus stops which go to all the hotels, including the off-site hotels such as the one I was staying in. The high-speed train is very expensive. For the 10-minute journey, it is €35 each way, which was €70 in total, so about £60 return. It's really expensive. But a lot of people had said to me, once you do the high-speed train, you won't want to go any other way, and I think they are absolutely right. It was so convenient, so quick, and to be right there within 10 minutes and not having to run around trying to find the bus stop and having to do an hour-long journey to your hotel and then get from the hotel to the parks, it was perfect. Something else that is great is if you do stay at Disneyland Paris hotel and you get the high-speed train, you can use the luggage service where you leave your bags at the train station and they take them to your hotel for you. That way you can literally get off the train and straight into the parks without ever having to check in, which is perfect. The one downside to Disneyland Paris is there is no real cheap way to get from Charles de Gaulle Airport to Disneyland Paris. The magical shuttle is around £42 return and it is really convenient and handy, but unfortunately the hours can be quite short, so depending on what time you need to leave leave or arrive, you may not find that the shuttle is actually running. The other option is a taxi. If you are a group, sometimes this can be a cheaper option, but if you're someone like me who is solo travel, it works out super, super expensive. And finally, you can get a local train and metros, but it does take around 70 or more minutes, and there is a lot of faff. It can be quite confusing. So I would say I would definitely use the high-speed train again. Yes, it is expensive, but it was so convenient and handy. The high-speed train I booked directly with the French operator's website. You can actually book with UK websites such as thetrainline.com, but they do charge fees, whereas the French operator's website do not. And also you can make amendments and change things, which I really liked. I liked that flexibility. You can also just turn up and buy them on the day. That kind of is a good option because you're not having to worry about what time you're going to arrive, because you don't really know if your plane's going to be delayed or how long customs will take. So sometimes it is a good idea to just rock up and buy your ticket when you arrive. Something else that I did transportation wise was park at Gatwick Airport. This is obviously not something everyone will need. The downside is parking for 2 days cost me much more than it did when I parked for 5 days, which is ironic. So 2 days parking was £50, which is unbelievably expensive. This time I decided to go with Gatwick's official parking. Usually I use APH, but this time because they were both the same price, I thought I'll try Gatwick's official parking. I have to say I did have some problems. When I arrived, it didn't recognise my booking, and they said, oh, just take a ticket. But obviously if you take a ticket, they want to then charge you, but I'd already paid. So when I went to leave after my trip, didn't recognise my booking again, and they were like, oh, but you've got your ticket, you can pay. And I was like, I'm not paying, I've already paid. It took a little while to sort that out. APH, who I usually use, have never had any problems, absolutely love them. So I definitely think I would use them again in the future. But it's just such a shame that very short parking costs so much more than longer parking. So all in all, the core costs, such as my transportation, my tickets, my hotel, the high-speed train, the airport parking, cost me £442 in total. Now in May, because it is a high season, things are a bit more expensive. The hotel would be cheaper other times of year, as would the flights and things like that. But for May, that is the type of cost you may pay for a 2-day trip. So now I'm going to talk about the things such as food, taxis and souvenirs, so you can get a kind of rough idea of how much those things will cost you. Obviously it's really subjective depending on where you dine, how many restaurants you eat in, if you use taxis, if you like to buy little souvenirs or go absolutely wild like I normally do. So this will obviously be a bit subjective, but hopefully you'll get a rough idea of how much things cost. So when it comes to dining, originally I was going to do like a super budget trip and just dine in quick service locations. These are always the cheapest types of meals, and they're the greatest option if you want to kind of keep costs low. You can get combination meals which are around 15 or 16 euro, and if you just get a main dish on its own, that can kind of be between 8 and 11 euro depending on where you eat. But as is always the way, things changed. Just before my trip, some restaurants reopened, and they were either ones that I'd never eaten in before or I hadn't been to for many years. And the great thing was they'd now come back with vegan options, which I'd never had before. So I was like, I've got to go and try them. This meant that I ended up eating in both table service and quick service locations during this trip. So the costs did go up a bit, but actually they were amazing, and I totally thought they were worth the price. So one of my favourite things I did during this trip was the princess dining experience at Auberge de Cendrillon. Cendrillon? I can't pronounce it, I don't know how you pronounce it, I'm very sorry. Here you get a 3-course meal whilst also getting to meet 4 Disney princesses. It was one of the highlights of my trip. I absolutely loved it. I had really amazing interactions and the food was so good. That being said, it is the most expensive restaurant at Disneyland Paris. So I had the 3-course meal and then I also ordered a drink, and that came to 84 euro. That works out about £72 with the exchange rate. So this is a very, very expensive premium dining experience. If you are looking for a treat or to celebrate a special occasion, it is definitely worth it. And also if you're a big fan of the princesses, this is a really good way to meet them without queuing for very long times at the Princess Pavilion. Although it was pricey, I thought it was worth all the money and I would absolutely go back and do it again. It was just so fabulous and the food was incredible. Sometimes you can get a great experience but the food's not great, but this was not that. It was overall excellent, and even though it was very pricey, Definitely worth it. I also dined at Walt's restaurant. This is on Main Street and it has lots of great artifacts and photographs of Walt Disney. It's a really beautiful restaurant and it has a 3-course menu for €42. As well as the 3 courses, I also ordered 2 drinks on top, so my bill came to €56 or £48. This is kind of a typical price you may pay in a table service restaurant. They typically have 3-course menus that are around €40, so it is in this ballpark figure that you will pay for a 3-course meal. Many of them will also offer a 2-course meal for about €30 if that's something you prefer. I then also had 2 quick service meals. I went to Cowboy Cookout Barbecue and I got a meal deal for €16. So it included burger and fries and then also a pineapple dessert and a drink for €16, which is really good. Normally main courses can cost around €14–15, so for a few extra euros, you're getting a drink and a dessert, which is perfect. In pounds, that worked out just under £14, which I don't think is really bad for a theme park. We are talking Disney prices, so £14 for a meal at a quick service location is something you're probably likely going to pay. I also ate at Toad Hall restaurant, which is my favourite quick service restaurant in Disneyland Paris. It is so good, and it was around the same price, so it's just under €16, which is just under £14, and that was for the vegan fish and chips and for a large drink. So those are the types of prices you will pay for meals at Disneyland Paris. Whilst I was there, I also had a few snacks, so I thought I'd include the prices for them as well. It was super hot during my trip, so I had to get something to cool down. So I got a tub of Ben & Jerry's ice cream. This cost €4.50 and it was expensive for what you got. It was a very small tub. What I would say is you can now get pineapple Dole Whip at Disneyland Paris and that is €5 and it's probably 3 or 4 times the size. So that is definitely a good option if you're wanting a cooling treat that is delicious, but you get much more for your money. Something else I did during this trip was go to the Skyline Bar in the Art of Marvel Hotel. This is a great place to go if you're looking to take a break, relax, or something for adults to do in the evening. I got a mocktail, a non-alcoholic cocktail there, and that cost me €12, so just over £10. So they are pricey. Alcoholic cocktails are around €16, soft drinks are around €6, and water is about €5. So it is a pricey place to go, but it is a really nice experience and it's very relaxing, but it is quite adult. And it's like very sophisticated, and it was just a really nice place to go and relax. On the last day of my trip, I decided to get an Uber. I've never actually used Uber ever. It was my first time. Who knew there were people that have never used Uber still? But I decided to do that just because I didn't want to wait for the shuttle because it could get quite busy and took a little while to get there, maybe 20–25 minutes. So I decided to hop into an Uber. This took me less than 5 minutes to get to the park, and you actually went to the entrance, which was on the other side near Vapiano, and there was no queue. So I just went straight through security. It was perfect, and that cost me €10. Obviously, if there are multiple people travelling, it works out much cheaper, but as a solo person, it was just €10 to get to the parks, nice and speedy, and you're in the entrance with no one around. Something else I tried for the very first time during this trip was Premier Access. I never really thought I would use Premier Access at Disneyland Paris because I tend to do longer trips, so you have time to fit everything in. And I go in the off season, so the queues aren't too bad. But this time with a shorter trip, I decided to use it and try it out. The first thing I used it for was to see the Mickey and the Magician show. This cost €15, so just over £13, and I got to enter a much shorter queue. I didn't have to wait around, which was fantastic because people do start queuing around an hour in advance. I went there about 25 minutes before, and then once you enter the auditorium, you have the pick of all of the seats, so you can choose wherever you like to sit, and I really loved this. It was so handy for me. At the time I also had a foot injury, so it really helped me not having to queue, and I would definitely do this again, I think. I really loved the ability to just kind of rock up and then pick an amazing seat. Something else that I used Premier Access for was Big Thunder Mountain. I honestly never thought I would pay to go on a ride at Disneyland Paris, but this trip, it's my favourite ride, and the queues had been long the entire time, and on the last day I was like, I don't want to miss out, I'm gonna go and do it. So it cost me €13, which is just over £11. It is the most expensive ride to ride at Disneyland Paris with Premier Access, But it did help save me lots of time. In fact, I just walked straight on to the next ride, which was fantastic. I would say if you are short on time, Premier Access can be really helpful so you don't miss out on the things you really want to do. And I will be doing an upcoming video all about Premier Access Ultimate, which is where you can now buy a package where you can go on all of the rides that have Premier Access once for a set price. And I will talk about what the rides are, how much it costs, and whether it's worth the money. And the final thing is merch. Now, normally I go absolutely wild on the merch because I just love it. I am a big Disney fan, and anything they sell, I'm like, I'm having it. Like, I'm like the ideal Disney customer because I'm like, oh, just go get it, or give me it, or it's ridiculous. But this time, because I was traveling with just a backpack, I couldn't go wild with the merch because I didn't have the space, which is probably a good thing. This time I bought a t-shirt, which was the Scar t-shirt. Absolutely loved it. I've seen it during all my previous trips and was like, oh, it's so nice. The colours are so good. And this time I was like, I'm going to go get it. And it cost me €22.99, which is just under £20, which I think for a t-shirt in a Disney park isn't too bad. I will say that prices at Disneyland Paris do tend to be cheaper than in Disney World. So if you are used to Disney World prices, things seem much more reasonable at Disneyland Paris. But speaking of unreasonable things, I bought something which was rather pricey, but I absolutely loved it. So I spied in Star Traders, the Star Wars shop, an animatronic Grogu. Now I am obsessed with The Mandalorian. Grogu is everything. The second I saw it was an animatronic, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. So I was absolutely sold. The downside is he was €100. He was very, very pricey. But I think if you're a collector of certain things, sometimes you're willing to pay out because you're like, I just need that in my collection. I've got to have it. And now he's happy at home, just doing the Force and making noises, and it's very, very cute. I think he was absolutely worth it. So these are the types of costs you will pay for things at Disneyland Paris. Of course, the Grogu is very expensive, and I've never paid anywhere near that amount for anything at Disneyland Paris, but it was a specialist piece of merch, which makes sense why it's a bit more. But t-shirts typically are around €23. Things like magnets are around €5. So there's a wide variety of different souvenirs available to everyone, and it just depends on what type of person you are. If you are, I'm just going to take a nice little memento away, you're going to find something. If you're like me, you're not going to buy literally everything, you're going to find a lot of things. But I hope this cost rundown has been helpful for you to give you an idea of roughly how much a 2-day trip to Disneyland Paris can cost you. Of course, some things are variable. If you choose mostly to dine at quick service locations and don't buy too much merchandise, the trip could be a lot cheaper. And if you travel in the off season, you will definitely get better prices for transportation and for hotels. But if you're going to visit in May, this is kind of the cost it could charge you. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it has been helpful. I'm going to be having a very exciting announcement coming up soon, so make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, and also subscribe so you can see some of my Disney vlogs that I'm going to be doing for upcoming trips, and also more planning videos. If there are any topics you would like me to cover, let me know in the comments down below. But until next time, I hope you have a most magical day. Bye bye.